All right, folks, welcome back to Cheddar's News Wrap. On this Monday, Congress is running out of time. We've got just a few days left, really, until the holiday recess. Lawmakers still need to deliver both a COVID-19 relief package and a long-term spending deal to fund the government beyond Friday. The same provisions are holding up negotiations that have done so for months, and the path forward remains unclear. Joining me now to discuss this and much more is Representative Darren Soto, Democrat of Florida, and the incoming chair of the Future Forum. Representative Soto, nice to see you. Thanks for taking the time. Before we get to the latest news, let's talk foremost here about the Future Forum. Tell us about it and what it means to be elected chair by your colleagues.
Sure. It's all about youth engagement for the House Democratic majority. We're looking forward to doing a national town hall tour at various districts at universities, colleges, and local apprenticeship programs. And we're also looking forward to putting forward a few surveys for both millennials and Gen Z. And hopefully we'll be working with Cheddar to get those out there for you.
So what are those top issues that you find resonating with Gen Z and with millennial voters? I think top of mind, Representative Soto, a lot of people say things like climate concerns, certainly healthcare would be up there. But in your experience, what do you hear from younger constituents? What are those priorities that they want to see you fight for in the 117th Congress?
So over many past surveys, we've seen civil rights be up there. Obviously, the economy and housing, student loans are up there pretty high, climate change, as well as immigration and access to healthcare. But we're looking forward to actually having a new survey so that we continue to engage and hear from you all about what you think is most important, because these things are going to evolve over time. And we're also planning on doing follow-up surveys on some of the bills that the House has already passed or look queued up to potentially pass next year, in a continuing engagement to get the input from young people across the nation so we could deliver on key priorities.
Congressman, let's talk COVID-19 relief to people who are exasperated looking in from the outside, and presumably that's many, many Americans. How do you explain the perceived gridlock? How do you explain this to people who say, why can't I get my $1,200 check? Why can't my small business get support? How do you see and describe the state of play?
Well, we saw Democrats and Republicans far apart for a while. The House had passed two major packages, the HEROES Act and then a revised HEROES Act of over $2 trillion and then under that marker. And in the meantime, the Senate Republicans hadn't brought anything to the floor that actually could pass. Just over the last 2 weeks, we've seen a $908 billion package be brought forward that takes care of the greatest needs right now, like COVID response and vaccines, unemployment benefits, food and housing assistance, student loan relief. And the big fight has been right now over whether the Republicans are going to accept state and local funding relief, as well as issues related to liability that Democrats oppose. Overall, many of us, including myself, voted up on several occasions for stimulus checks, but the Senate Republicans have said they will not accept any package over $1 trillion, and that is one of the most costly parts of it. It would be almost $400 billion to put the stimulus checks forward. So while there's a lot of support for it among the Democrats, there's not a lot of bipartisan support for it, given the $1 trillion cap. So we have our work cut out for us this week, but we shouldn't be going home until a bill is passed for the American people.
All right, so you know as well as I do that Democrats, perhaps like yourself in the hallways of the U.S. Capitol, you are fond of describing the other chamber as Mitch McConnell's graveyard. In other words, you as a House Democrat, you say we've passed all these bills, and you have, objectively, there's no doubt. You've passed a number of bills the last few years. They go over to the Senate. Mitch McConnell does not give it consideration. But we are watching Speaker Pelosi and leading Democrats seemingly negotiate a little bit differently. Is it fair to say that after the election, Congressman Soto, we have seen Madam Speaker adjust some of her own calculus? And if that is a fair assessment, now being willing to back a lower price tag bill, do you see that being a result of the fact that Democrats were actually weakened in their House of Representatives numbers instead of strengthened at the recent election?
So first, we recognize that food assistance is running out, housing assistance is running out, and we have a vaccine. So we know we have to get money to bridge the gap into next year. We also have an administration coming in. in President-elect Biden with the Electoral College vote even today. And so we know we have to get to his swearing in, and then we're going to have a lot more clout to be able to implement it. Remember, the president runs the day-to-day government. The House Democrats, yes, we have a smaller majority, but we certainly are still going to be running the agenda in the House. I think you'll see that bills will have to be pretty broad consensus to get to the floor, but a lot of it will also be in supporting Biden's effort. Overall, anybody who's paying attention to anything knows that when you win a presidency and you keep a House majority, you have more clout among Democrats, not less, with even the possibility of the Democrats taking the majority if we could run the table in Georgia. So while it certainly wasn't a landslide election, we come out in a much better position with running the day-to-day government through the President of the United States and shoring up that agenda with the new House Democratic majority in the 117th Congress.
All right, let's talk about government funding as it pertains here to the final weeks of the 116th U.S. Congress. Representative Soto, why does it always appear as if Congress waits until the very last minute? We are always having these kick the can down the road CR, continuing resolution conversations. Every holiday season that I have been a Capitol Hill reporter, it's the same thing year in, year out. We know technically there's supposed to be 12 different appropriations bills or packages to move this forward. Why does it always feel as if Congress has waited until the very last days to get something really, really important done like this?
Because I think pressure moves things along. First, the House Democrats, we passed through 11 of our 12 appropriations bills months ago. The Senate has gotten out of the habit of passing appropriations bills and going to conference and dragging things out. We see that again this year. But the bottom line is it shouldn't be this way. And I certainly voted for appropriations packages earlier this year, and we should have been able to get that done then. But you know, like America, there's far gaps between Democrats in the Senate, Democrats in the House and Republicans in the Senate on a lot of issues. And so it takes the CR and a deadline to force the parties to get together in a deal. And look, there's going to be things in there we like. There's going to be things in there we don't like. But we can't accept failure as an option when we're going into a dark winter, as President-elect Biden's talked about, bridging the gap into a new administration where science and facts will rule and competency be back in the government. So we just need to get us there. And that's what this package is about.
Of course, we also talk an awful lot about the must-pass National Defense Authorization Act, also known as the NDAA. President Donald Trump has never had Congress override one of his vetoes. It may happen in his final days in office, as remarkable as that is to consider. What do you make of the fact that the president may actually veto the NDAA despite criticism from both Democrats as well as members of his own party?
It's a disgrace, and it's also senseless. You know, we have a 3% troop raise. We have federal police reforms in there. We are renaming military bases that are named after Confederate generals and the like. We are helping with our readiness and national security and cybersecurity. And yet, with huge bipartisan support, President Trump is angry about the 230 section of the Decency Act that gives liability protections to internet companies. If you're scratching your head about why this is happening, you're not alone. This has nothing to do with the NDAA. But we've seen House Republicans say that they may refuse to override that veto purely because they are scared of President Trump. But why would you veto a troop pay raise for an unrelated internet protection policy is beyond me, especially when 50 Congresses in a row have passed this bill. Every year, this has been done for a half a century. It would be a terrible end, though not a surprising end to Trump's tenure if he did veto it. I'm hoping he doesn't.
You and I have learned a long time ago, Congressman Soto, there's no surprises. Surprise every day, but still somehow nothing surprises us in this day and age. Representative Darren Soto, Democrat of Florida, thank you, sir. Good to have you here on the show.